The number of full battery electric vehicles continues to grow and be offered to consumers, and that growth every year is increasing in all segments and categories. The high-end luxury segment is no different, and we're seeing some new models coming on last year, this year, and next. One of them is what's beside me here. We're taking a look on this latest review at the all-new first-ever Mercedes-Benz EQS 580. The EQS sedan is technically available in two different drivetrain modes. The EQS 580 I'm driving is a dual motor system, while the EQS 450 operates as a single motor. But this choice is not available to Canadians, as only the dual motor or all-wheel drive EQS 580 is sold north of the 49th parallel. Compared to the dual motor 580, the rear-wheel drive EQS will offer less overall power, slightly longer range, and a few less bells and whistles, all for a price tag in the USA that starts about $20,000 below its dual motor sibling. With the EQS 580, you'll get power from a 107 kilowatt-hour battery pack that feeds dual synchronous motors on the front and rear axle with 385 kilowatts of total output and an equivalent of 516 horsepower and 631 pound-feet of torque. According to Mercedes-Benz, acceleration time is 4 seconds to get from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, or 4.1 seconds to go from 0 to 60 miles an hour. Top speed is set at 210 kilometers or 130 miles an hour. The posted range for the EQS 580 is 547 kilometers or 340 miles. And while this represents one of the longer estimated drive ranges available, my experience in it showed it's capable of going a lot farther than this. Driving range, just like distance to empty, is always changing and based on a vehicle's computer, factoring in driving habits, climate, terrain, and more. I had the chance to review the EQS 580 during a time of year where temperatures are ideal for maximizing EV range, and given how I saw estimated range figures as high as over 700 kilometers when full, this EV all but eliminates any notion of range anxiety. One thing contributing to this fact is that the EQS is also relatively efficient at using the energy it stores in the battery pack. With a combined energy efficiency rating of 3.1 liters E per 100 kilometers or 77 mpge, it's more efficient than the EVs it would compete against, such as the BMW iX, Audi e-tron, and Cadillac Lyriq, although it still falls below the efficiency rating of the Tesla Model S. The 400-volt charging infrastructure inside the EQS allows the vehicle to take up to 200 kilowatts of DC fast charging. Mercedes says it would take 31 minutes to charge the EQS from 10% to 80%, and it's a claim I was able to verify in my DC fast charging test. For home charging, the 9.6 kilowatt onboard charger, when connected to a level 2 charge cable, will take the EQS from 10% to full in about 11 hours. So in understanding the Mercedes EQ and its whole nomenclature, EQ, of course, is the platform. It is the electrified, dedicated universal platform. And the third letter would be, in this case, S, which is essentially designed to replicate or mimic the sizing that it would be, S being S-Class. Now, this is not an S-Class. This is, again, a dedicated vehicle on a dedicated platform, but sized approximating the S. You'll see that with the EQE and EQC and so on. So that's how you're going to identify, the electric and the sizing of the vehicle. Now, it's beyond that. What is particularly of note with this EQS and the 580 is the shape of it. It is different than the S-Class sedan, and it's primarily due to aerodynamics. One of the most significant developments in the design of this is the fact that they have achieved basically the most aerodynamic design that exists in a vehicle right now of this type. We measure aerodynamics by a measurement called coefficient of drag. The most aerodynamic thing that we know of that exists is a teardrop, and we basically compare everything against that. So a teardrop, when you're using this thing called coefficient of drag, would basically be rated as 0. Anything above that shows how much more resistance there is in terms of drag compared to a teardrop. The EQS 580 has what is known as a coefficient of drag of 0.8.
So, you don't have to know exactly all it means, except to say that that is the most efficient. Something like a G-Wagon would probably be double that. It'd be far more resistance. Why is this important? Because, well, with less resistance in the air, you're going to be able to cut through more efficiently. You're going to need less energy. And less energy and more efficiency is a big hallmark of electric vehicles. And how that is important when it comes to comparing it, say, with a regular S-Class, it's probably more in the rear. The sort of teardrop, that flowing, aerodynamically efficient design has sort of reduced the rear seat room a bit compared to a traditional S-Class. It's not as spacious, and that's something you will note if you try them both. But there are other things that assist in aerodynamics as well. Door handles, when they're sticking out, they can add a little bit of drag. With this EQS, like some other vehicles you see, Tesla, even some of the Land Rovers, I should say, the door handles are receded when you approach it, or when you unlock, they pop out, and at nighttime they even illuminate as well, which is helpful, but they stay into the body to resist drag. Even the tires that you would use on the EQS, you can get 19, 20, or 21-inch tires. But the material, obviously you want tires to grip to the road, but you don't want them to grip too much that it increases the drag. So you will have low rolling resistance tires, and that's something you'll see here also. Something else that is really unique. Electric vehicles, of course, do not have an engine, which would be typically found under the hood. So you have this space, and different automakers are utilizing that space differently. Some will put more electronics there so that you have an open floor. You're getting a lot more flat floor, so there's an emphasis on interior passenger volume. Others will put storage areas, that term frunk. You could see a small little frunk in the front, or you can see, like in the case of the Ford F-150 Lightning, the entire front compartment is a giant storage area. With Mercedes, however, in the EQ, they've done something I've never seen before. You actually can't get into the hood. You cannot get under the hood. Inside, they have placed their HVAC system and their HEPA filter. One of the things that is a big plus inside this EQS is the quality of air that is in the cabin, and the HEPA filter, which needs to be kept isolated and secure, is under here. So you cannot lift underneath. An interesting sidebar is there are always going to be things that you would typically go under the hood for, aside from, maintenance. One of them is windshield washer fluid. If you can't get under the hood, where would you put it? And that's where this little side thing comes in. You would place it, the reservoir, you pour it in here. When I first walked up to the vehicle, I thought this might be where the charge port is, whereas in fact, the charge port on the EQS is on the rear and on the passenger side for vehicles here in North America, where you're driving, your steering wheel is on the left.
For as much as the exterior of the EQS is about the efficiency of form and function while badged in luxury branding, the most obvious indication that you're in a high-end luxury vehicle comes by stepping inside. The most dominating feature of the EQS 580 interior is the 56 inches of curved glass across the front of the vehicle, encasing 3 different displays and known as the MBUX hyperscreen. To say there is a wow effect going on here is a bit of an understatement. OLED technology is used for the central and front passenger displays, providing an especially brilliant image. But it's also a challenge to record, as my initial slow-motion video and frame rate caused a painful strobing effect, and it took me 6 weeks to get back into this vehicle to re-record the footage I needed. This also explains why I'm in shorts in parts of this video despite me posting it to my channel in November. That said, the capabilities of the MBUX hyperscreen are incredible, and it can be overwhelming at times as well. To help in this regard, artificial intelligence and learn-capable software enables the control and display concept to adapt to its user and make personalized suggestions for a variety of functions, from infotainment to comfort and even vehicle functions. The user no longer has to scroll through submenus or give voice commands, as the most important applications are always available in a situational and contextual way at the top of the driver's field of vision. Given the lack of tactile buttons on the hyperscreen, fortunately there are a total of 12 actuators beneath the touchscreen for haptic feedback during operation. If the figure touches certain points there, they trigger a tangible vibration in the cover plate. It's not quite the tactile button effect that I prefer, but it certainly is helpful. And it needs to be said that no automaker at the moment does ambient lighting quite like Mercedes-Benz does. The available ambient lighting system in the EQS uses 190 LEDs placed throughout the vehicle. It can be customized into dozens of color combinations, plus it can serve to alert occupants of hazards or emergency situations. It's visually impressive and functional at the same time.
When you first get into this EQS 580, it really is overwhelming. In fact, it's distracting. It's ironic, or not ironic enough, that as soon as you turn it on, in fact, the center screen tells you to not let this entire system distract you. It's kind of about, well, obviously. But this is one of the challenges. You want to offer a lot of digital tools, a lot of technology, a lot of convenience, but you don't want to do so in a way that the driver becomes too distracted and a safety risk. So earlier this year, I actually wrote an article in the Toronto Star in the Wheels section, which appeared online and also appeared in wheels.ca, where I actually discussed the issue of center screen information, how overpowering it has become, and in fact how overwhelming it can be at times. I'll try to put the link to the article if you want to read it. But I looked into some of what automakers are doing to minimize the distraction while still offering all the convenience and features that they're now putting into the center screens and into infotainment and stuff. Clearly, one of them is through voice integration. So the voice commands you can do with various vehicles. Here with Mercedes, we're dealing with their own internal program, the MBUX system, and I could reach and have commands done by simply going, "Hey Mercedes,
how can I help?
Can you turn the climate controls to 22 degrees?
I'm setting the temperature to 22 degrees.
And so that's obviously one way, but the sophistication is, to varying degrees. It will take time to learn your system, and you'll learn your voice commands. Now, this EQS does have AI, so it will learn your habits and your preferences. In fact, on the screen, it will, over time, learn what you tend to go to most, and it'll keep it up front. That's a good thing. But the evolution goes beyond that. When you are in a vehicle with a passenger, we're now getting into something that I wrote about in the article called the digital democratization. And what that means is we're basically getting to a point where if there are other passengers, why not share the responsibility? Obviously, we've always had passengers being able to reach the center screen, but we're now seeing, and this Mercedes has an example of it, where there is a separate screen on the passenger side. And if I allow it, if I engage it, someone sitting with me in the passenger seats could control the audio controls, could control climate, can even set a destination in the GPS. It's all there. So that takes away some of the burden from the driver to focus. And it's even getting a little bit further in this EQS, because for full digital democratization, I should say, in the rear seat, if you have passengers in the rear, quite often in a case like this, it might be, parents up front and kids in the back, and the kids want to control the audio. In the rear seat, in the center armrest where there's cup holders, there is also a little mini tablet that you can, in this car, they can pull out, and when in their hands, they now from the rear seat can control through touch points, things like, the stereo and what they want to listen to and volume and such as that. So these are innovative approaches to still offering all the connectivity, all the technology and the convenience features that vehicles like this want to give you without being too dangerous that the driver becomes too distracted and thus really becoming a moot point in terms of benefits net overall. Mercedes-Benz has always been known to launch vehicles that they would want to be considered as signature or hallmarks, to really go all out and have everybody just amazed by what they've put together. And with this new EQ and the EQS 580, they've done that. I have been incredibly impressed with this vehicle. I've been gobsmacked by the level of technology. The interior, there is nothing more impressive on the market right now than the interior of this EQS 580. As for it being an electric vehicle, it drives great. It drives as comfortably and luxuriously as you would expect an S-Class equivalent to be. More efficient than I thought it would be. Powerful, a lot of fun. I'm just going to say, if you're looking in this category, because this isn't a high volume category, but if you've been considering a Model S or an e-tron, an iX, a Cadillac Lyriq, you really have to consider this EQS as well. You're going to be impressed as I was. If you are not subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so. And if you are subscribed, make sure you have rung the bell so that you're notified of every time I upload something new. That's it for now. I'm Eric Novak. Thanks for watching.